Welcome to the REI Rookies Podcast,
the Real Estate Investing Rookies Podcast, episode number 49, where we invite you to follow us on our journey towards financial freedom using the power of real estate. I'm Josh Koth.
And I'm Jack Haas.
And here at REI Rookies, we believe in a couple key principles. Number one, the best way to retain information is by teaching it to others. And number two, a rising tide lifts all boats. We're not competitors, we're a community. So let's get into some real estate investing.
This week, we're going to do a little case study on a recent acquisition and then a disposition of a property.
I always found these types of case study episodes and explanations of case studies and books very helpful when I was getting started. Just to kind of, when you see how it's played out, it's some of that social proof. So you see it happening, right? And then it just really helps you prepare to run all the numbers yourself when you come across a potential property. So I found these really helpful. So we thought, well, let's do a case study episode every few episodes.
So in this case, we kind of split up the duties, and it kind of falls in this line over and over again. But we'll start with acquisition. And Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about how we found the property and where the numbers landed?
Yeah. So we're always, we have a bunch of lines on the water. It's kind of like fishing, right? So you're always wanting to consider any property that might come your way. So, we have a realtor that we work with who knows we purchase a lot of properties, and we've purchased a lot of properties through this particular realtor. And someone on his team was aware of a rental that was going to be for sale soon. It hadn't hit the MLS yet, but it was going to be listed actually like 2 or 3 days later. They had just had to kick somebody out of the house. There was some stuff in it. It was a little dirty. They were going to get it prepared for listing. But if somebody came in with the right amount of money, they would be willing to forego that and just sell it to us prior to hitting the MLS. A couple of things to consider when that happens. And that's what they call a pocket listing, right? So it's basically a listing that an agent has in their pocket that not everyone knows about yet. And it's to their advantage if they can get it sold before they have to do any marketing, all the time and expense that comes along with putting a property on the MLS. If they can avoid all that, they can still make their commission quickly, because also then you don't have to do showings. You don't have to do all these other time-consuming things that agents have to do in order to sell houses. So it's to everyone's advantage to get it sold before it even gets listed. So that's kind of how those listings come about. So we just received a call from our agent, and I happened to be free that afternoon. So ran over and looked at the house. It was vacant. Actually, we were getting ready to leave to fly out to LA for some real estate conference and some training. And I said, he was like, well, it's not clean yet. They're not going to be clean for a couple of days. They really doesn't want to show it. And I said, we're flying out tomorrow. So if he wants me to get in there and make an offer, it's going to have to be today. So a lot of times that scarcity, that urgency, when you inject some of that in there, that paid off. So I was able to go look at the house, judge its condition, and we made a decision on the way to the airport, either that night or the next day. I forget if it was the same day or not, but it's important to act quickly when you have these pocket listings come your way, because you want to get a deal done before it's in front of a bunch of other people and all of a sudden you're competing for the deal. So you want to try to avoid that competition aspect as much as you can.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun that as we've been building our network of professionals and buyers and sellers and what have you, these deals are coming to us on a more frequent basis. And it's taken us a couple of years to build out that type of network and to that level, but it's really nice to have that lead generation, some of that happening on our behalf.
Yeah, and when you perform on multiple deals for someone and actually follow through and close, they feel safe recommending you when another investor or someone is looking to sell a property. They want to get you in there first, because if they know you're going to end up at the closing table and they have to do very little damage control during the process and overcome fewer obstacles, that's just a win for everybody. So when you perform, you start to get these deals, more and more deals brought your way. And it really is a snowball effect.
Yeah, and we're seeing that more and more now over the past couple of weeks as we've been taking some very consistent actions and behavior. Um, we're starting to see those leads and that snowball growing. So it's really great to see some of that stuff happen when you're getting those deals more frequently, and it takes that consistent, predictable behavior in order to generate those type of results.
Yeah, like we spoke about in the last episode, that's really at the heart of success, is that consistent, repeatable behavior. But it's important to be able to close and follow through on these two. That's so important. And if you do that, then you'll start to see these pocket listings and more direct referrals come your way. And it does take time to build. Like you mentioned, it took us, a couple of years to get to the point now where people are consistently bringing us deals that aren't hitting the market.
So we'll jump over to the sale of the same property now. We decided in this one pretty quickly and early on that we would be doing a contract for deed exit strategy on this. So a couple things that we've kind of turned into a routine now, especially when it comes to CFDs. First, we do not do private showings, and I think this is one of the better strategies that we leverage in this type of exit.
Mm-hmm.
We deliberately will pick a Saturday or Sunday, an hour and a half. This last time I eked it to an hour and a half to try to see if that extra 30 minutes would really produce any additional results.
Right.
I don't know if I saw that big of a difference, but we did get a couple leads on a couple other investors out of it because I stuck around a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me the freedom to build some rapport and have that time to talk. We kind of lingered there for 20 minutes talking to those other investors.
Right.
So picking that 1.5 hour window of opportunity, sticking to it, because I know that was something that I was even struggling with, because, people give you those stories of not being able to attend that window, whether
Right.
it's a kid or weather or they have to work or what have you. But we really stuck to it. And we just decided that if we had to do any kind of private showings, it was going to happen after the fact if we didn't sell the property during that time.
And it's all about generating as much hype and as much demand as you can, right? Through all means necessary. So you can always show it to somebody, like you said, on a private one-on-one basis after the fact, but you really want to try to limit and have that scarcity built into the process, because that causes people to react. And if they really want a chance at having the house, they know they have to show up during that window. And then you got that sense of competition there because all those people are there at the same time, right?
Right. That's exactly what happens.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually see people looking at each other as they're brushing elbows and brushing shoulders when they're trying to get through doorways and stuff.
And nothing makes a property more attractive than seeing someone else potentially about to take it from you.
Right. So when you have, I think at one point we had 6 couples in the house at the same time,
Right.
them having to wait for each other as they went down to the family room downstairs.
And nothing, like a real estate agents will tell you, nothing's better than that. And having a bunch of people in there at the same exact moment.
Right.
And, that's why they limit when they do their open houses. Well, typically I find they do them too long. Usually they're a good couple hours, but when you really limit it, it forces people to be there much more likely to be there at the same time.
Yeah. So in this case, this is the second time this has happened where people wanted to buy the house, essentially sign the contract before they even looked at it.
Because of all that demand.
Yeah. So they're actually, because of that scarcity mindset, they're willing to sign contracts in order to lock the property up. I'm really reluctant on doing that. I don't want buyer's remorse, and I want complete transparency. So really encourage them to be there at that particular time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a situation where, like we did, somebody wanted to close on the property before the showing, we actually increase the down payment to give even more skin in the game,
Right.
in order for us to basically cancel the event.
Right, because we were very certain we're going to sell it during that open house window just based on the demand. So in order to cancel that, they have to be willing to put a little more skin in the game, as you mentioned. So, and when you're controlling that demand and that leverage, that really is a powerful thing.
Yeah. So in this case, we actually did sell the property before the showing.
Mm-hmm.
We were asking 5,000 down. We got 7,
Mm-hmm.
and we did compromise just a little bit on the sale price.
Right.
But in the end, we ended up with a good showing, a lot of competition, and we added a couple more investors to the list of potential buyers if we ever want to wholesale or contact them for some other opportunities. So,
right, because this property was in a price point where it could have worked for an investor to hold as a rental too. So that was another side benefit of having the open house, just more people there. And then, you collect those names, you have a sign-up sheet, and it's just more people you can contact when you find other properties, and you have potential buyers for the next one, right? Because a lot of times these contract for deed houses, the location of the house and the particulars on the house are almost secondary to the ability of them to purchase it contract for deed. Because if they can't qualify, or for whatever reason they don't like banks, or they don't qualify for a typical mortgage, they are a likely candidate to purchase a future house, even if it's not in the same town or the same block or same neighborhood. So you want to stockpile those names.
Right. So this was the first time where I actually had a sign-up sheet there to just collect those names and contact information. And then I also had a place where they could basically make a quick note of their ideal property or their ideal house. So if they were looking for a 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom, they could call that out so that I could contact them directly if we did run across a property in the future that meets their need. But it allows us to start to farm those leads or farm that opportunity.
And ultimately you could almost act like a personal shopper. You can almost go out and find a property for them if you got the sense that they were really serious.
Right.
And if the deal works, if it meets your normal deal standards anyways, that, if you can say, hey, I found the perfect one for you guys. I want you guys to see it before we open it up to the public. That's enough. You can inject some scarcity there too.
Right.
And if it is exactly what they're looking for, and you're willing to purchase it prior to that, and then obviously build in profit for yourself, and because you're taking all the risk as acting like the bank, that can be another great way to have another transaction.
Yeah. So I think it was a really successful event. And we disposed of another one. So
So
we have another cash flowing property for, I think our amortization schedule on this one is 20 years. So.
Yep, exactly. So you got the nice thing about doing a contract for deed is you get a chunk of money down, and you also collect cash flow on a passive basis monthly as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, because when we flip, we just get a chunk of cash, and when we purchase rentals, we get a stream. So this is kind of a nice mixing of those two worlds, the best of both worlds there.
Just a reminder for those that aren't as familiar with contract for deeds or rent to own, you do lose out on the other profit centers, because now you're essentially selling the property. But you do have to make up for it and make sure those numbers work out for the long run to make that up in some other way. So that's how we do so with the sale price as well as the amortized schedule.
Yep. So just to run down the numbers on this house. So we purchased it for $75,000, sold it for $95,000, got $7,000 down, and with our debt service and other expenses involved, I believe it's going to cash flow a little over between $200 and $300 a month.
Yep. And what's really great about it is that you start to remove some of those expenses associated with rental property. So we don't have like property management fees like we have we would normally.
Maintenance,
repairs.
Yep, it's all
of that is now the responsibility of the new owner.
Yep, exactly. Because you're just Wells Fargo. You're the bank.
Yeah.
So it's, everything from there on out is their responsibility. And it's great too, because they really have a pride of ownership. They own their own home now. They can paint it. They can do pretty much whatever they want to the house. And typically, as a seller, they're going to improve the property. So if something does happen and they can't fulfill the contract for whatever reason, typically you get the house back in much better shape than if it was a tenant in it, because the new owners will have that pride of ownership. So it's another benefit of selling things, lease to own or contract for deed.
Yeah, in this case, the ink wasn't even dry on the contract, and they had already started ordering custom cabinets.
Yeah, exactly. We love that. I mean, we're helping somebody get into a house they wouldn't have possibly been able to get qualified for. They're improving the property, improving the neighborhood. And I would say that the surrounding neighbors are probably going to prefer someone who's buying the house versus a tenant. So it's kind of a win for everybody.
Yep, absolutely.
And also there's a ton more demand for this type of transaction, a contract for deed ad, or, any place we list these properties gets a ton more interest than when you list a traditional rental.
Yep.
So that's kind of how we found our way to it. So you just want to, if the market is demanding a certain thing, if you can fulfill that, then why wouldn't you, right? So, I mean, we have kind of a mix of traditional buy and hold rentals, some seller finance contract for deeds, and we're doing some flipping. So you just want to have all options available to you.
Yeah, and especially in this market where the rental market has gotten really soft.
Mm-hmm.
There is a definite demand for the contract for deeds. So it's working out pretty well. Okay, for us.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I didn't expect is that we had a contract for deed prior who reached out, buyer's remorse, if you will, because they saw this place and they were concerned that it was nicer for about the same terms. So it's one of those things that I guess we struggle with, I struggle with a little bit, because why would they should be seeing us as a bank, but because it's been more of a personal relationship, they feel like they can friend you on Facebook and message you still regarding property issues or what have you. I mean, at that point, the contract is signed. It's a matter of drawing that line, but you still want to be personable and approachable. And
that's why we employ a loan servicing company. So what we do is after the first month, we use a loan servicer. So they'll actually collect the payments from there on out, and you just pay us, the seller or the buyer, new buyer pays a small monthly fee to have that loan serviced professionally. So that's a great way to have that line, because like you said, Wells Fargo doesn't get a call if something happens to the property.
Right.
They're just the people lending the money. And that's when you're in this type of scenario, you want to be just the bank.
Yep.
So if something happens to the property, you wouldn't call Wells Fargo. You'd call a plumber, you'd call a roofer, call whatever. You do inspections prior to signing the contract. And, in the spirit of being fully ethical, we would never want to, leave anybody with something we knew was wrong with the property. And in one case, there was, I think we had a frozen pipe like a couple of days prior, and we fixed it,
Right.
And even though it was technically, we could have legally left them with that, we just wouldn't have felt right about that. So we fixed that prior to, actually after they had even taken occupancy.
Yep.
We had our plumber over there making the repairs and just told them to bill us. So,
yep.
I think if you're doing things ethically and treat people how you'd want to be treated and what you think is fair, I think you can, rest your head at night and feel okay with it.
Right. So the coach's corner this week, I had a quote from Zig Ziglar. When obstacles arise, you change your direction to reach your goal. You do not change your decision to get there.
Great. So just go around it.
Yeah.
But maintain your motivation to achieve the goal, but you may have to adjust your tactics. That's a good one.
As always, if you have any questions for us, thoughts, or just feedback, send them to info@reirookies.com.
Make sure you check us out on Facebook or Twitter @REI Rookies. And if you like what you're hearing, head over to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really helps other rookie investors out there find the show.
Remember, get off the bench
and get into the game. We'll see you next time.